Something strange is happening today. The White House is unusually quiet, reporters are restless, and markets are jittery. Washington insiders are whispering that the latest round of tariff threats aimed at Canada might have just backfired in a way no one expected. And the man at the center of it all, Prime Minister Mark Carney, isn't even in Canada right now. He's been in Asia all week, working quietly behind closed doors on what many assumed was just another round of trade talks. But it turns out, there's a lot more going on beneath the surface. Because while President Trump's team was preparing to tighten the screws with new tariffs meant to teach Ottawa a lesson, something shifted, something big enough to send shockwaves through Washington, Beijing, and yes, even Alberta's oil capital. See, Trump's threat wasn't supposed to be complicated. It was meant to look strong, decisive, a warning shot that the U.S. would not tolerate what his advisors called Canada's economic maneuvering. But then, Carney's team did something that caught everyone completely off guard. They didn't respond with anger. They didn't fire back with counter-threats. Instead, Carney stayed completely silent. For nearly 48 hours, nothing came out of Ottawa. Not a single statement, not even a tweet. And that silence started to make people nervous. Because when Carney goes quiet, it usually means he's thinking several moves ahead. Then, early this morning, while most of Washington was still asleep, a memo leaked from Asia hinting that Carney had been meeting with energy ministers from several major Asian economies. The meetings weren't supposed to be public. But the topic? Let's just say it wasn't tourism. It was trade. Energy trade. And according to several sources close to those talks, Canada may have just secured something that completely changes the leverage in this tariff standoff. That's when the panic started in D.C. Because if those rumors are true, Trump's tariff threat, which was meant to pressure Canada, might have just done the opposite. It might have pushed Carney straight into the hands of some of America's biggest competitors. Now, let's rewind for a second. Carney's relationship with Trump has always been tense, but oddly strategic. Both men understand power, both know the art of perception, and both know when to strike quietly. When Trump announced new tariffs targeting Canadian manufacturing, it was pitched as a patriotic move to protect American jobs. The speech played well at home. But behind closed doors, Carney's advisors weren't panicking, they were smiling. Because Canada had already been preparing for this. While Trump's advisors were crafting press releases, Carney's team had been quietly building something else, a new export network that bypasses traditional U.S. routes entirely. And if those agreements in Asia turn out to be what people think they are, they could reroute billions of dollars in trade away from U.S. markets, without firing a single retaliatory shot. That's why many analysts tonight are calling Carney's silence strategic genius. Instead of reacting emotionally, he let the U.S. walk right into its own trap. Because the truth is, every time Trump tries to punish Canada economically, it forces Ottawa to innovate, to find new partners, new buyers, new allies. And Carney, being the economist he is, seems to understand that pressure can actually create opportunity. But here's where things get even more interesting. Several high-level U.S. trade officials reportedly urged Trump not to go through with the latest tariff announcement. They warned him it might destabilize North American supply chains, especially in energy. Trump didn't listen. He wanted a show of strength. And now, sources suggest, Carney might have just used that moment to flip the entire narrative. Imagine this, a prime minister who's not even in the country, halfway across the world, outmaneuvers the most powerful economy on Earth without saying a single word. That's not just strategy. That's psychological warfare. As the hours tick by, the tension is growing. In Ottawa, ministers are preparing for Carney's return tomorrow, and insiders say a special cabinet session is already scheduled for the moment he lands. No one knows what's going to be announced, but there's talk of a major economic adjustment that could rewrite the entire trade conversation between Canada and the U.S. And yet, no one is confirming anything. Every spokesperson, every aide, every press secretary, they're all tight-lipped. Which, of course, only makes the story more fascinating. Because in modern politics, silence is rarely accidental. It's usually a signal. Meanwhile, Trump's inner circle is reportedly divided. Some are pushing for even harsher action against Canada, arguing that backing down now would look weak. Others are warning that Carney's next move could have ripple effects that hit key U.S. states just months before the election. And Trump, being Trump, isn't known for backing down easily. But this time, He might have to, not because he wants to, but because the numbers simply won't make sense anymore. Here's why. If Carney's Asia meetings resulted in even a partial agreement on critical energy exports, natural gas, lithium, or even tech manufacturing inputs, Canada could offset the impact of U.S. tariffs almost overnight. And that would mean Trump's main weapon in this standoff becomes useless. There's even speculation among analysts that Carney anticipated this months ago. Remember when he pushed for expanded Pacific trade partnerships earlier this year? At the time, critics said it was a distraction, a vanity project. But now, it looks like that early groundwork could be what saves Canada from the full force of these tariffs. And here's the part no one in Washington wants to admit. Carney's approach is making the U.S. look reactive, not strategic. Every time Trump swings, Carney sidesteps. Every time the U.S. tries to corner Canada, Ottawa quietly finds a new door. It's almost like watching a chess player who's already thinking 3 games ahead. What's particularly ironic is that Trump's supporters were celebrating this tariff threat just days ago, calling it a bold move. Now, those same voices are unusually quiet, because markets have started reacting, and not in the way Washington hoped. Reports suggest several key sectors are showing signs of nervousness, especially in regions that depend heavily on cross-border trade. Meanwhile, in Asia, Carney's team has been keeping a deliberately low profile. No flashy press conferences, no public boasts. Just quiet, behind-the-scenes diplomacy. And that's exactly why it's working. When everyone expects confrontation, subtlety becomes the most powerful weapon. By the time Carney lands back in Ottawa tomorrow, the mood will have shifted completely. What began as a story about Trump's tough stance may end as a story about how a calm, calculating economist turned a threat into leverage. Now, I want to be clear, nothing has been confirmed officially. No one's admitting to any secret deals or leaked strategies. But when you look at the timing, the tone, and the silence from both sides, it's hard not to feel like something big is unfolding behind the curtain. And if that's true, Trump's tariff threat may go down not as a show of strength, but as the moment Canada quietly rewrote the rules of the game. One more thing. Watch how Carney handles his return. If he says very little, that will tell you everything. Because when a leader knows they've already won the move, they don't need to brag. They just let the other side realize it too late. So for now, all eyes are on Ottawa, and on that flight bringing Mark Carney home from Asia. The next 48 hours could determine whether this trade standoff fizzles out quietly or turns into one of the biggest political reversals of the year. And as strange as it sounds, Trump's threat, the one meant to corner Canada, might have just handed Carney the biggest strategic victory of his career. Whether it's confirmed tomorrow or never publicly spoken of at all, one thing is certain. Nothing about this was accidental.